Hi, Carrie. How you doing? I think the cover looks good. Nice, crisp feel to it. It's very minimal, very readable, very welcoming. One thing I would recommend though is I think the rings are this relationship between the type and the rings. See how it's like on this kind of slant, this diagonal like this. Not real sure if that's the most comfortable thing. I think one thing that might help this is if you just reduce the size of the rings, maybe align them with the 2022 and place them down somewhere right down there. I just think this is just too it's competing too much. So if we back off on the rings a little bit in terms of the size and the scale, we bring them down here and align them, I think it will really clean up that page. Okay, let's take a look at the table of contents. One thing I see in the table of contents is it almost looks like you're using bold type. If you are, you don't want to use bold type. This almost looks like a bold set too, so you don't want to do that. One thing I would recommend in the table of contents is use your leaders to your page numbers. And the reason being is because you've got some areas that don't have page numbers. Leaders are just a wonderful way to set up a contents page because you don't get lost. I mean, those leaders, they just really guide the eye line right to the page number. So I think I would recommend doing that. Okay, now this page and subsequent pages, I think, are good, but one thing I would recommend, sorry, I wanted to increase my screen size a little so you can see the whole spread. Now, one thing I recommend, now this page and this page are identical, and then you come over here and these pages are now identical as this. So you've kind of creating this kind of, I don't want to say the word mundane, but it's not very exciting from page to page because you get this page, then you get the exact same page here. So I would definitely recompose these pages just to add a little bit more variation from page to page. Definitely want to have some consistency. Definitely where the headline resides, where the type starts on each page. But as far as the placement of images goes, you can really take some liberties there and work within your grid to create a more dynamic page, as opposed to using the exact same layout for these first two pages. Now we move over here, and what you have here is you've created symmetry. This is the same as we could compare this to center align type. We don't center align type because it creates a symmetry around the negative space, and symmetry is not the most interesting things in terms of visual communication. So what do we have here on this page? We have perfect symmetry. So we've got this page is a mirror image of itself. We fold it in the middle and it folds down on itself. The right page is just like the left page. So I think that we can create a little bit more visual dynamics here by not doing that. One thing I would recommend is you've got your headline left aligned here, but right aligned here. You've got your type left aligned here, but right aligned here. That's an inconsistency. Basically what you're doing is it looks like you're trying to frame your page in, and you don't want to do that. If you're going to stick with left align type, right rag, stick with it throughout your presentation. Don't change based on the fact that the type happens to reside on the right-hand side of the page. Okay, and then the image placement, you've got a whole grid to work with. You don't have to place the images in the same spot on each page. I think that, again, creates this kind of mundane, almost, not a real dynamic visual attribute to the page layouts. So I would recompose these pages accordingly. Okay, let's move down. Okay, again, the same layout. Okay, now this page is very interesting. Why? Because you've got this wonderful use of white space all around here. And so you got the logo, you've described the logo, and then you've got this wonderful use of white space. So I'm wondering if we can't do the same thing with these other pages. So leisure activities, describe leisure activities, and then give an image or two images, or maybe just an array of images based on your grid. Not unlike you've done here. This is a very interesting page, much more interesting than this page. Okay, next. Again, this is another very interesting page because it's not predictable. Okay, next page. This page it's a little difficult to understand what's going on because you've got typography listed down here, but you got pictograms listed up here. So one of the things I would recommend is this. Okay, so right now it looks like you're moving from here on, typography, pictograms, media, apparel. Looks like you've moved your type to the top of the page. So let's do that with typography. Let's get that up here. Okay, and this page I like because you've got your typography. Maybe give a couple other examples of how DIN condensed and this Unit 2 work, or how they maybe give an alphabet with the numbers 1 through 10. Or 1 through 9 with a 0 through 9. You know what I mean? So just give a little bit more of an idea of what that typeface looks like. So we have typography up here, then you have pictograms right here, and then continue that through apparel, move media over here to this side. The same thing, technology right here, venue right here. Okay, and I think that will definitely help because I would recommend doing the same thing up here. So you have architecture, and then on this page put agriculture, and then left align, right reg your type. Okay, I think it'll be much more interesting. And then try to arrange your images in an interesting way throughout your grid. I want to show you something here as we scroll through. Okay, I'm going to put my cursor right here on the W. Now watch what happens when I jump through. I'm just going to scroll through the presentation. See how M just jumped? Okay, now architecture just jumped up even higher. Culture's up there. Transportation just jumped again. So your type is kind of moving all over the page, down there, up there. What I would suggest is find one or two, like for instance, you have in the first part of your presentation, you have your type that starts about maybe a third down the page. So pick a spot, stick with the grid, and make sure that that type starts consistently on every page. So in other words, culture starts right there, the same place. Transportation, culture, architecture, all start in the same spot on each page. Same thing with your images. I'll put my cursor at the corner of the image. See how they jump around? So I don't really want you to stick with those images anyways, but I just want to show you that things are jumping around on your page. Okay, let's take a look at typography. As I said, I think that your typography is, I think it's a bold typeface. I would not do that. Bold equates to getting yelled at in visual communication. So typeset looks pretty good. Definitely don't recommend the right aligned. Typeset looks good. Looks pretty good. Widow. You don't want any letters, any words sitting on a line by themselves. Okay, other than that, yeah, looking good. All right, those would be my recommendations moving forward. But other than that, I think that you've got a nice, fresh, clean feel to the presentation. I think you said you're going to be adding more, so that's great. So yeah, so far so good. Just I think that some of the pages are a little bit too regular in terms of being symmetrical presentations of the page, creating this kind of symmetry whereby the negative space isn't as interesting as it could be. All right, so those would be my comments. Any questions, comments at all, please let me know. Thank you.